Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we've got a Tsunami reel in. This is a Tsunami 6000. I don't know much more about it other than that. I can't seem to find a model number under that, but let's just call it the Tsunami 6000 from now. It's got a couple of issues. One of them is a broken handle. We're going to see if we can find a replacement one for my extra handles bag. And it's not turning. It's kind of jammed up there. So we're going to take this apart. We'll see what makes this thing tick. See if we can't get this thing back out there fishing again, give it a second chance, and see if we can understand the problem and repair the problem during the course of this video. So I like to take the external pieces off first. I want to do that so that I get access to the main part of the reel. And while I do that, I want to thank our first responders and essential personnel and everybody involved in keeping us safe during the pandemic. Fire, rescue, EMT, police, all the medical workers. Thank you for everything that you do. You truly are local hometown heroes. Okay, we've got a broken handle. I'm going to pull it out a little bit. I want to see if it can drive the gear without it. So it's not the handle that's causing the issue here, but we'll see what we can do. The rotor is turning, however, very slowly. And when I got this in, this was wrapped all around with line, so I'm thinking I've got a line problem somewhere in here that's probably trapped. I'm also looking at this. It doesn't look like there's an easy mount for the bump guard, so I'm thinking this one screw will probably take that bump guard out. So let's just see if it works that way. If not, we're just going to have to try and figure this one out. So there we go. So that was easy enough. And what I'm doing is I'm taking my parts and I'm putting them in a parts tray. It's the bottom of a jug, and that helps to keep them all organized when we go to reassemble the reel. We know where those pieces and parts are. I also like to check the length of the screws that I'm taking out to make sure that they're the same screw, and if they're not the same screw, I like to identify where the difference is so that I can put them back in the right place. So I've already gone ahead in my parts tray and put the screw that was holding this one inside that little bump guard so that I know that that's the proper location for it. Okay, this side plate cannot be removed without removing the rotor. If you look at a side plate and you have a split seam here, then you'll know you can take it off without taking the rotor off first. In this case, that seam is solid and the side case goes up under the rotor, so you have to remove the rotor in order to complete the disassembly of the side plate. So we're going to take this off now. We'll remove that. I'm just going to put that off to the side, keeping those components there. Next up, we have a couple of red washers. Those are spool adjuster height adjusters. So what they are doing is when you spin your reel, if the line is gathering too much to the high side or the low side, you use those little washers to raise or lower the spool to correct for that deficiency. I take that click ratchet out. That goes into my parts bin, and this looks like a 12 millimeter. It is. And just check. In this case, this comes off in a non-traditional clockwise manner. This is a deep socket. That's a Mitchell tool, but if you have a 12 millimeter deep socket, you can go over the post. If not, this rim on the reel is not terrible. You could come in with an open face wrench and do it there as well. Okay, we're going to pull that up. Check underneath. This has a traditional anti-reverse. It has a little dog here. It's driven by a spring that you can see underneath. And as this reel operates, the eccentric will push it in or push it out, and that will grab the saw teeth on the inside of this rotor. So the big pieces I don't have to put into my parts tray, and I'm going to leave that just as it is for a moment. Next up then is a collar. And I guess what we would want to do here, just for fun's sake, remember we're just trying to get to the bottom of this, the lower end of the case. But I'm going to take this dog off to show you how this dog is set. And this is a good place to tell you to take pictures along the way if you're not familiar with the reel or if you can't get the schematic. Because if that's the case, you want to know the orientation of the pieces and parts. just in case you have a lapse of memory when it goes time to reinstall this. We have a collar, we have a spring riding on a collar, we have the anti-reverse dog. I'm going to pull the anti-reverse dog up first. Then I should be able to remove the assembly, which has that eccentric spring there. And remember on this one as well, take notes, the spring is on the downside of this assembly as opposed to being on the upside, so don't install it upside down when you go to put this back on. And now we have 3 screws here, but we also have the 2 side plate screws, which is really what I was trying to get to. So let's go ahead and complete that. I'm going to put that long screw, which belongs with the anti-reverse dog, in that location. And I still don't see broken line in the reel, so I'm a little bit concerned at this point, because if I take the main shaft and try and turn it, it's not turning by hand. So there's definitely something going on inside this reel that may or may not be repairable. Alright, that's the last 2 of those. This side plate should come off now, which it does. And it looks like we're still kind of stuck here. Those screws that I'm gathering are all the same size. So this is still something of a concern here because we're not moving. Alright, we're going to come down and remove the axle shaft. Sometimes you can get this main gear out without it. Oh, okay, we can get the main gear out. Checking for damage. I don't see any damage on either the crosswind gear drive or the back of the main gear. This is very interesting because we're stuck at the bearing. Very interesting. Alright, we're going to just complete the disassembly. See if we can't free that up. It's really odd to have even a seized bearing be a problem in terms of not being able to turn the wheel. We're going to pull this axle shaft up once you remove that little hold fast. And I think that's probably the issue right there. I think we have a bent axle shaft. So I'm going to go ahead, grab the button. I'm having trouble pulling that up. So grab the adjuster button. Get that back on the axle shaft. Use that as a knob to pull the axle shaft up. Wow. That whole assembly is seized there. Alright, well, there's, as they like to say, there's more than one way, right? We're going to take this off. We're going to pull the 3 screws that hold this on. This has got a bearing and a pinion gear. And it may be that line's trapped inside that pinion gear sleeve there. We'll see. Again, I'm taking these out to make sure that the screws are the same length. And they are. Now we should be able to pull the whole assembly up. And now we want to find out why in the world the axle shaft is not moving. Bearing comes off. And we are frozen on there. Wow. Okay, so it was a bent axle shaft and it wasn't much in the line of a replacement part. This wheel is not that expensive. But what I was able to do was just very patiently tap in and out on that piece until I got it to the point where it's friction free. So this one kind of had an oddball bend, but if you wind up in that situation where you find that bend, just look inside and see which side has the gap and which one doesn't, and then gently just kind of tap it with a non-marring hammer. So that's what we got. This one's going to be ready to go again. All right, crosswind block, easy enough. Single ball bearing reel. We're going to go ahead and grab the grease. We're going to get some grease onto the crosswind block here, gear. Block is coming. And we're going to just reverse the process and give this reel a second chance here. So I don't know what exactly happened with that handle, but whatever story that handle has to tell, it also had an effect on the axle shaft and the reel in general. All right, seat that down like that. Let's go back to our main gear. The good news was you didn't have damage on the main gear. So we're going to go ahead and just get some new grease there. put that in. And we have our gear shaft and our bearing. Pinion gear. And normally I would say inspect these for damage. I think we already did that. And make sure that those channels are clear, which they were. I'm going to go ahead and put the bearing on it. Put some oil in that bearing. We can go ahead and reinsert that. Probably could have done a little bit better putting that in first. We don't have an issue mounting the main gear. Now we can go ahead and put the main gear in. Okay, we have the 3 screws that are the tie-down screws for the bearing. And a lot of manufacturers will do this. So this is on the lower spectrum of the Tsunami line. Tsunami makes some that are hundreds of dollars, and they make some that are what I'll call the entry level or the value reel. And this one's a value reel. Okay, just lost the main gear again. We'll go back and put that back in again. We're getting a lot of good exposure doing that. One more of these. Now I wear the glove to keep the grease off my hand, but it's not doing a real good job of keeping the grease off of the reel. We'll go back and clean that up. More important at this point to make sure that you have the pieces in properly. I'm going to put this back in. And now we have the side case, and we have the bushing. And we can put a little bit of grease onto the anchor point of the main gear. So that goes in next. Let's do a little bit of house cleaning here while we're at it. Now we have those side plate screws that we know about. The 2 go up top. Oops, can't do that yet. That was an oops. I'm going to put our axle shaft in. Our freshly reconditioned axle shaft. Our tie-down screw. We go to the bucket to get that tie-down screw. So if you like these kinds of videos, I'd ask you to subscribe to my channel. That way you'll get to see what I'm posting. I post all kinds of reels, spinning reels, conventional reels, freshwater, saltwater, whatever kind of shows up in my shop. Generally speaking, I will post those if given the time. And you'll get to learn a little bit along with me in terms of some reels maybe you haven't seen before. Maybe you're thinking of purchasing them. Maybe you've got one and you just want to kind of tune it up, or maybe you have one that's broken and you're kind of looking for how to fix it. Or maybe you just come across that great deal at a flea market and you purchase it and don't know much about it and want to see a little bit more of what makes that reel tick before you take it apart. Well, all of those are good options here, and all of those would be available on the videos that I publish. So go ahead and subscribe, and if you subscribe, hit the notification button. That'll let you know when I post a new video, and you'll be able to see whether that's one you would enjoy viewing, and if it is, you can kind of dial it right in. Alright, well, remember how this one went. It was a single screw that was holding it in, and in my parts tray I made sure to put that screw with that bump guard so that I got the right one in place. Alright, now we're ready to put the rotor on, but first it's the anti-reverse collar and gear. So let's get that spring set properly, and we want to get our anti-reverse piece, and we want to make sure that the anti-reverse has the spring in that little groove. Now Now we can put that long screw in that belongs there. So if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, leave them in the comments section. I do try to respond to as many questions as possible, and particularly those that I probably know the answer to. And if you leave those questions in there, there's a good chance I'll be able to help you either answer the question specifically or help you overcome a problem that maybe you're having as you're rebuilding a reel or the like. So leave them in the comments section. And of course, if you like the video, please indicate that with a like. All right, this is a counterclockwise tightening. Look at this. We have a reel again. All right, we have a clip ratchet that goes down. We have the little button, the shim washer that's going to control the line height. We should, just for good reel rebuilding practice, take a look at the drag washers. That's not why this came in. It came in because it wasn't working. Let's see what this one has. This one has felt washers, and it's a good thing we look because these felt washers need oil. There's two different types of washers in this reel. Just make sure that the centered washer has what's called the ears on it. The top and bottom washer, or the round washers, they're called key washers because they match the axle shaft. So you start with a felt washer and then you go to a round washer, another felt washer and the eared washer, and then another felt washer, and the last of the second of the key washers. We'll go ahead and put this in. And then what we're going to find out here is if this other handle that I selected is going to work. We already said that this one was broken, and a good trick to these broken ones is sometimes you can get another arm, knock out the pin, and replace it. But in this case, it's got an odd design where the fork is actually part of the arm as opposed to the opposite way, which is done most of the time. But here's a handle that I grabbed off of another reel that I had. I think it's going to work in here. We're going to find out. And if it does, we're going to solve a couple of problems here. Most important one is get this reel running again. As I mentioned, it's not a very expensive reel, so you don't want to spend a lot doing this, but there you go. Got a reel that's working again. How do you like that? All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've learned something from this. And please stay well. Stay watching. So here's another problem we have with the Bale. We'll go back and solve this one. I think it's probably a bent Bale wire. So I'd really like to find out what this thing slammed up against, because to break a handle, bend an axle shaft, and bend the Bale is quite an endeavor there. Let's just see if we can loosen that a little bit before we sign off here. See if we can get that to trip this way. All right. So here's how to fix that Bale. That Bale's got a bent Bale wire. You're going to pull the screw out. That'll release the tension on the wire. You can see how it's way out here. You just simply rebend it in to the point where it's going to line with the arm. That'll take the tension off the wire. So you get bonus coverage here. Not only figure out how to solve the problem where we were, you also see how to fix that Bale. And those are all because this reel hit something, or something hit it. I'm not quite sure which it is. But with that tension off the Bale now, that Bale should fire. And there you go. Simple as that, right? Now we have a Bale that closes as well. So all we did there was rebend the Bale wire, because this thing obviously got slammed. Probably got hit on the handle side, slammed, Bale. Something affected the axle shaft. However, it's all back together again and ready to go fishing. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Please stay well, stay safe, stay fishing, and stay watching. Have a great day.